Hey everyone, it's Dave with House Flipping Spreadsheet. I'm the founder and creator of this crazy little spreadsheet here, and I'm here to just walk you through all of the different tools and features that we have in our House Flipping Spreadsheet Excel spreadsheet template. So I'm going to make this as quick as possible. I'll just give you a quick rundown of all the different tools and how you can use those to better analyze your deals, estimate your renovation costs, and then once you do get a flip under contract, you can use our project management tools and expense tracking tools to keep your project on track and on budget, so that way hopefully you maximize your profitability on your deal. So let's jump into it real quick. When you first open up the House Flipping Spreadsheet, this is the dashboard that you're going to be shown. This is just basically the welcome dashboard, and it shows you a workflow of all of the different tools and steps in the spreadsheet. So we've got it broken down by step one, which is just setting up your basic property info. The next step is going to be to analyze your deal. So you're going to use the Rehab Analyzer to analyze a deal, estimate the renovation cost, stuff like that. If you do end up getting a property under contract, you'd move on to step 3 and 4, which is the project management and accounting tools to track your project progress. We've got different checklists and stuff like that in there, but then you can also manage your budgets and track your expenses. So the first step is just to set up the project info. This is just your basic property information such as a street address, number of beds, number of baths, square footage, and then your company information, which will all be presented on our different reports that we have in the spreadsheet. So you can see we've got a number of different reports that are pre-built for you and pre-formatted. You can see the property address goes up here, will be shown on all the headers and footers. You've also got your company information here. You can insert your own company logos, stuff like that, but that's where that data and information about the project and your company will be fed to. If you're not going to be using these reports, then you really don't need to set that up. Otherwise, you can just start analyzing the deal. So if you click on Analyze, that'll take you to the Analyze workflow. So the first step is setting up your property information. We've already done that. Now we need to analyze the deal, which is generally the next step. You would do a quick analysis using our Rehab Analyzer, and then once you think it might be a good idea, you might move on to the repair estimator to put together a detailed scope of work for the property. You can see we've got other reports in here. I'll get to that here shortly. So let's start with just a quick analysis. So our Rehab Analyzer tool that you're looking at here is used to analyze the maximum purchase price that you should offer for a property. So it's taking your after repair value and it's subtracting out your buying costs, your holding costs, your selling costs, your financing costs, your repair costs, and your profit to calculate your maximum purchase price. So the after repair value, that's what you think you can resell the property for after you do the renovations to the property. So right now we've got $165,000 plugged in for this property. Buying costs are the costs that you're going to incur when you buy the property. Generally that's going to be about 1 to 2% of the purchase amount. So we might be a little low here at $1,000. It might be in somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000 for buying costs. Holding costs, basically that's going to be for utilities, insurance, maintenance, stuff like that. So we've got a rehab period of about 3 months, and then it's going to take us about 2 months to sell the property. So once we get it listed, we think it might take a few weeks to get a property under contract, and then it might take another 30 to 45 days to close and go through that process to hand the keys over to the end buyer. So that multiplied by our monthly holding costs gives us a total. So 5 months times $600 in monthly holding costs equals $3,000 total for holding costs. And then selling costs, bulk of it's going to be your seller's commissions that you're going to pay to your agents for the buyer's commission and the seller's agent's commission. And then you might have some other miscellaneous fees. Generally that's going to be in between somewhere between 7 to 9% of the overall after repair value for selling costs. And then financing costs, we don't have anything in here. We've got that set up as a cash buyer here, but I'm currently using the demo version here, but you would be able to set up your debt, your equity, or a combination of the above. You could set up an equity share for a business partner who would share in the profit in the deal. You can set up a hard money lender. You can set up private money lender, whatever you need to there. But we're going to assume this is a cash deal just for this this webinar here. And then so we've got a total of $14,850 for fixed costs. So that's $1,000 plus $3,000 plus $10,850, which is 9% of the after repair value. So the 70% rule, if you're familiar with that, says that you should really be at around 15% of the after repair value for your fixed costs. So we might be a little light here. We might need to take a look at some of our costs, but we are an all cash buyer, so I would expect us to have a little bit less percentage of the ARV for fixed costs. But anyways, let's move on to the repair cost section. You've got a couple different options here. You can see we've got quick bid selected, but you can do detailed, which will pull it automatically in from the repair estimator. Quick bid allows you to just plug these values directly into these cells here, and then lump sum would allow you to just do one lump sum number of like $50,000. You could just plug that directly in here. And then we've got adders. So this is for extra costs on top of your subtotal. So for example, if you've got these straight line costs here, this would be if you were going to be hiring the subcontractors yourself. But if you are going to be hiring a contractor to manage the project, he's going to want to charge you 10 to 20% overhead on top of those costs. So that could be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 extra dollars. So if you're hiring a GC, you definitely want to include that in your estimates. And then contingency is really to just cover any kind of unforeseen repairs or issues that you might run into on the project. That's going to be based upon risk in the deal or how complicated the renovation is. So if you're really good at estimating costs or really comfortable with construction, you might have 0% to 5% construction contingency. If you've never done this before, you should probably have 25% plus, or hire a contractor or somebody that knows what they're doing to get you that estimate, so that way you can be more accurate. So we've got $63,000 as our repair budget, and then $24,000 in profit, which is 15% of the ARV. That's generally what a house flipper is going to shoot for, is 15% of the ARV. So 15% of 165 is $24,000. So overall, our maximum purchase price that's recommended is $61,000. So that's what the calculator is recommending we offer for the property. You can change these settings here if you want to change it so that way you can analyze a deal based upon a known purchase price. So let's say that we think that we can buy it for $50,000. We could plug that in there to see what that calculated profit's going to be. So that's something else that you can do there. Is if you want to calculate your profitability based upon a known purchase price, just click that link and you can do it that way. So let's say that we think this deal might actually happen, but we want to refine our numbers for the repair costs. We were just plugging these values in here to just kind of as a quick and dirty estimate. Well, you can go over to the repair estimator and you can use this tool to quickly estimate your repair costs for all of your different repairs that you have on the project. So you can see we've got 24 different categories here. Each of these categories are broken down and have a detailed list of repairs and costs. So you can see for demolition, we've got a detailed list here. I oftentimes will just plug in 80 hours times an hourly rate to come up with a budget. So 80 hours being two guys basically working an entire week, making $20 an hour would be $1,600. We've got dumpsters and other stuff you can plug in there, but you can see you'll basically just go through and input your quantities. Your quantities will be multiplied by our unit prices that we have in here, and then it'll estimate that out to create a budget for you. So these are all customizable. So if you need to increase some of these prices, you can do that. So if your prices are more expensive in your area or whatnot, you can adjust those prices to better reflect the contractors that you're using or the materials that you're using in your area. But basically what you'll do is you'll just go through and you'll input your quantities for all of these different categories based upon the scope of work that's needed on the property, and that will estimate out a detailed estimate for your project. So this can be a good way for you to create a detailed estimate and scope of work, and really makes you evaluate everything that really needs to happen on the deal. If we go back to the Rehab Analyzer, what we can do is we can switch this analysis back to detailed, and then that's going to basically automatically pull in our detailed costs. So you can see now that we've actually done a detailed estimate, our repair costs budget actually went up. So there were some things that we missed in that quick bid analysis that we did for the estimate. That's what happens a lot of times, is when you're quickly going through things in your head, you think it's going to be a lot cheaper, but once you actually put pen to paper and do a detailed estimate, that tends to go up. So that's why it's a good idea to do a detailed estimate, just to make sure you're not missing anything. So now you can see our calculated profit's only 30,000. Before it was about 35,000. So that's how you can use that repair estimator tool to estimate your costs. One of the cool things about the Rehab Analyzer, our repair estimator, is we do have all of these different deal analysis reports. So you can see we've got an estimate report. Well, that basically takes all of that detailed estimate information, it puts it into a printer friendly report for you. So you can see we've got a summary report here. If we scroll down, we've got a detailed estimate which quantifies all of your detailed items for each category. So you can see we've got 3 entry doors, 3 doors with door hardware, glass storm doors, stuff like that. So that can just be a good way for you to generate detailed estimate reports for your contractors, your business partners. I'm assuming your lenders will be wanting to see all of that detailed information. If you've got that in a printer friendly format and you can provide that for them, it's going to give yourself credibility with your lenders, so that way they know that you've done your due diligence on the property and have really thought about the scope of work and what really needs to be done on the project. Now, this is our investment report, so this is basically going to summarize all of your financial analysis that you performed with the Rehab Analyzer. So again, this would be a nice report that you can quickly generate automatically based upon those values that you inputted into the Rehab Analyzer. Then you can print this off, give this to your business partners, give this to your lenders, and again, it's really going to create a lot of credibility for you, so that way they can see that you've done your due diligence on all of the numbers in the deal. You've got your comps here that you've compared to, that they can look up and make sure that you're using good comps. You've got your estimate summary here, so they can see a summary of all of your repairs on the property. And then there's even a photos page that you can use to basically show them the existing condition of the property, so they can see what kind of potential the property has to be rehabbed and brought back up to a nice renovated standard. A bunch of other reports, all project cost reports, lender funding reports, homeowner offer reports, comparable sales report. You'll also notice that we have alternative exit strategies. So if you're a wholesaler, that analysis process is going to look a lot like the rehab analysis process. As a wholesaler, you're really analyzing the deal just how a house flipper would, except for you're tacking on your wholesale assignment fee here. So that's really the only difference, is you're including your wholesale assignment fee. Otherwise, the entire analysis process should really be done just how a house flipper would do it, because you're really wanting to figure out what the property is worth to a house flipper, and so that way you can market it to them and reassign it to them once you get it under contract. And then we do have a rental calculator. So if you are a buy and hold investor, you'll notice that we do have a rental calculator in here that you can use to analyze small single families or small multi-family deals. So you can see you can add in up to 5 rental units here. You can add in your rental income, calculate your operating expenses, set up long-term financing, calculate your cash flow, your cap rates, your equity that you're earning from purchasing and rehabbing the property, from paying down the principal, from the property appreciating in value, and then you can calculate your total return. So if you're a long-term investor or someone that's doing the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, you can use that rental calculator for those strategies, those long-term rental strategies. So let's say you get a property under contract, you've analyzed the deal, you've made an offer to the seller of the property. Then what you'll want to do is you can move on to the project management and accounting tools. So I'll just quickly review some of the different tools and functionalities that we have in the project management side of the spreadsheet. You can create a schedule, you can manage tasks. You also notice we have a bunch of different project management reports. Let's just start with the scheduler here. So the scheduler can be used to create a Gantt chart. So basically you can go through and you can set up all of the different repairs that need to be made. So we've got a drop down menu here that comes with pre-built with a list of common repairs. But basically you can set up a Gantt chart. So let's say that the structural repairs need to start on day 7 and they're going to take 5 days. So now you can see it's starting to build a Gantt timeline over there. Once that happens, let's say that maybe we are going to start doing drywall, well, or let's say rough framing. Okay, and that's going to start on day 13, and that's going to take 3 days. So again, it's diagramming this out so that way you can see that visually, but you're planning out all of your different scopes of work that you have on the property. You can also track your actual versus your plan, so that way you can see where you're at and compare that to your initial plan schedule to where you're actually at on your schedule. So that can be a handy tool if you're just looking for a simple way to plan out and visualize the different tasks that need to happen on a Gantt chart. Also, you'll notice that we've got a bunch of different project management reports. So we've got a contractor pre-qualification report. This can just be used to print it out, give it to your contractors so they can fill it in for you to basically prove that they're qualified. So it really kind of goes into some different questions here as far as business experience, references, stuff like that, qualifications if they've got their licenses. So that can be a handy pre-built pre-qualification form that you can give to your contractors just to make sure they're qualified. Another report that'll be handy is our scope of work report. So this scope of work report automatically populates from the repair estimator. So when you go through and you put together a repair estimate using our repair estimator, you're inputting quantities in there, you're basically creating a detailed list and scope of work for the property. Well, that information all feeds over to the scope of work report. So if you go over here to the scope of work report, it's going to populate all of your quantities. And then we've got some general notes that you can also give to your contractor to basically tell them everything that they need to include in that specific category, and then they can provide a total for that category. So for example, on demolition, we plugged in 80 hours of demolition. If you don't want to have that, you can delete that and they can tell you how many hours it's really going to be. But you'll see you've got miscellaneous demolition items here. Disconnect all plumbing lines and add existing plumbing fixtures, remove and dispose of all demolition debris into the project dumpster, remove and dispose of all yard waste, any furnishing, stuff like that. So you can provide an additional list of all of the repairs that the contractor needs to include in their bid. Same thing with decking and patios. Here's what we included in our estimate, basically a 100 square foot deck. It needs to be a new deck, columns, joists, made out of cedar, but you can see you've got some detailed descriptions down below. All decking, framing, railing, balusters, and stair components are to be contractor furnished, contractor installed. In other words, they need to provide all the materials and the labor in their bid. Deck structural design and layout needs to be approved by the city. Everything needs to be according to local building codes. The deck joists and sizes, column sizes, structural framing all needs to be according to local building codes. So it's really just clarifying everything that needs to be included in your contractor's bid for that particular scope of work. So this is a pretty handy tool for you. We've got all these miscellaneous notes in here pre-populated for you. So basically you'll just go through, put in your quantities for your estimate, go over to the scope of work report, and this information will be pre-populated over here. Then you can just go print it off, give it to your contractor, and you'll have a pre-built scope of work for yourself. Otherwise, if you navigate back to the project management dashboard, you'll notice we have a bunch of different project management reports and checklists. So you've got your contractor pre-qualification form, but then you've also got independent contractor agreements, bid forms, rehab checklists, task lists, materials list, vendor contacts list, for sale flyers, lien waivers. So again, these are all just pre-built contractor checklists or agreements that you can use, that you can customize for your own business. So we've got an independent contractor agreement here. You can use that as basically a template. Definitely recommend you have a local attorney review that just to make sure everything looks good for your local market, but that can be a good starting point for you. Bid form, rehab checklist. This is a checklist that you can use that walks you through basically the entire process from submitting an offer, once the offer is accepted, property inspections, contractor preparation, bidding, final purchase decision, rehab prep. So another detailed checklist that can be used to help you just go through that process to make sure that you're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. So that's a quick overview of the management tools. Now over on the accounting side, this is what you can use to track your project expenses and compare that to your actuals. So first, when you get over to the accounting side, you'll want to set up your accounts and your vendors. Your vendors are the vendors that you're going to be paying on the property, so that's going to be Lowe's, Home Depot, your contractors like your electrician, Sherwin-Williams, stuff like that. You can also set up your bank accounts. So over here you can set up your credit card accounts or your bank accounts that you're using to pay your expenses. And then once you start doing that, once you get that set up, you can start tracking your expenses and comparing that to your budget. So the project budgeter is a tool that you can use to show your overall project budget. So you can see we've got a budgeted column, we've got a to-date column, percent complete, and projected. So the budgeted column actually feeds from the initial analysis that you perform using the Rehab Analyzer tool. So you can see we've got our budget purchase price of $50,000, our buying costs, holding costs, selling costs, all of our repair costs here, which feed from the repair cost section, our contingency, our total project costs, and then our profit. So if you remember, when we go back to our rehab analysis, we had a $30,000 profit. So all of these values should match our initial analysis that we put together when we were analyzing the deal. And then we can compare that to our to date. So to date feeds from the expense tracker. So the expense tracker is the tool that's used to track your actual project expenses on the deal. So you can see it's really just a table, but this table can be used to help organize the entire process and organize all of your expenses. So you've got a description or memo, you can input the date here, and then you can tell it, what account you use to pay for that expense. So you can see we used our checking account to purchase the property. We paid First One Bank was our vendor, but you can see we've got a vendor contact list. Again, this was all set up in that initial accounting area. And then we've got our purchase price. So these are all the categories that you can use to track the different purchase categories of how or what you were paying for. So that category in particular was the purchase price, but you can see we've got demolition down here, plumbing, electrical, tiling, doors and frames. So again, this can be a way that you can organize all of your expenses, and once you start inputting this information and categorizing it, that will feed back to the project budgeter here, and you can use that to compare it to what you initially had budgeted. So you can see our initial budget was $50,000. We've spent to date $52,000. We're 100% complete because we don't have any more purchase expenses coming down the pipeline. So you can see we're actually over budget on the purchase amount by $2,000. On the buying costs, we're 100% complete there. We ended up spending $1,060. Our initial analysis, we only plugged in $1,000. So again, we're over budget on that one. But you'll see if we get into the repair costs, it'll start to compare our spent to date for our different repairs. So you can see demolition, our initial budget was $1,600. Again, we spent a little bit more than we wanted to. We spent $1,700, so we're $140 over budget. We got some good news down here in framing and drywall. We had a budget of $750. We only ended up spending $500, so we actually saved some money there. You can see we've got some things that are over budget. Doors and trim are over budget, but our hardwood flooring and tiling are under budget. So you can see how this could be a helpful tool for keeping tabs on what you've spent to date, how that compares to your budget, and using that to forecast where your overall profitability is going to come in at. So you can see overall our resale value, we think we can resell it for a little bit more. So we've got 175,000. Maybe a recent comp came on the market that basically pushed up our after repair value. So we've got that plugged in at 175 instead of 165. So we're up 10 grand there on revenue. We're up $6,000 on expenses. So overall, we're going to make about $3,000 more profit than we were anticipating. So we'll make about 34,000 instead of that 30. So hopefully, again, you can see how that would be a helpful tool to just keep tabs on where you're at with your budget and your expenses to date. But all of this information and data also feeds to some pretty valuable reports. So you've got your project budget report that basically just summarizes your project budget into a printer-friendly report for you. The real value here is going to be your expense reports and your final profit statement. So you can see we've got an expense by category report. This is a breakdown showing you a summary of all of your expenses by each category, so you can see how much you've spent in each category. But if we go down here below, you can see a detailed breakdown. So you can see we've got multiple expenses under the demolition category, which total $1,700. So that way you can see all of your expenses per category there. We've also got an expense by vendor report. This will show you a breakdown and a summary of all of your expenses that you've paid to each vendor on the project. So you can see affordable rehab, we've paid $6,900. At Lowe's, we spent $500 there. And then if you want to see a detailed breakdown, again, you can see what all of those expenses are down below. So you can see the totals that go into that overall total for each of your vendors. So those expense reports are going to be powerful just to help you organize that process, see your summaries of how much you've spent on each category, see how much you've paid to each vendor, and then you do have a final profit report, which basically shows you the profitability of the deal. So once you've inputted 100% of all of your expenses into the expense tracker, this will show you a detailed breakdown to show you what your profit's going to be. Now, we don't have 100% of our expenses plugged in yet, so that's why it's showing our profitability being $98,000. But once you get all of those finalized, this will be a nice report that you can use. That'll show you basically how much revenue you generated from reselling the property, and then it'll deduct all of your expenses to calculate your profit. So that is an overview of just about everything in the house flipping spreadsheet. Hopefully that provided a quick and dirty overview for you, so that way you can get acquainted with everything. If you do have any questions on anything at all, you can always find us on our website in our support section, or shoot us an email, or give us a call at our support number. So if you have any questions, again, reach out. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be in touch.